And that actually segues into the next question I was going to ask you, which was, when you returned to the New York stage, to do Lady Day, and one of the most emotional, gripping moments of the show is when you sing the anti-lynching song, "Strange Fruit." And how difficult is it for you to sing that song, and what emotions does it stir in you when you do so?
It is a difficult song for me to sing because it conjures up images that I saw growing up of lynchings of Black men, Black boys. It conjures up a lot of racial hardships that I experienced in the 1950s, in the 60s. Well, it just goes on. It's something that never leaves. She had been ordered by government not to sing this song. Congress, the United States Congress passed a law stating that she was not allowed to sing this because of the lyric. An act of Congress? This is absurd. And that song is the beginning of the decline of Billie, because she sang it anyway. And this is what began the constant harassment by the police in different cities, but in particular, every time she would go to Philadelphia. Drugs were planted in her dressing rooms. Drugs were planted in her apartment so that she could be arrested. She never traveled with drugs. They actually sent gardenias to her as a gift, an anonymous gift, when she was in the hospital. Did you know this? She was sent a box of gardenias. And when the box was opened up, it had heroin that had been sprinkled into it. So they tried to discredit her all the way until she died. And I find that absolutely appalling. And I find it absolutely amazing that this woman continued to sing that song, because that song told the truth about what was going on in the United States. That we had this horrible racism, that here we had come out as a people out of slavery, and we still could not find our place in society. Southern trees bear strange fruit, blood on the leaves and blood at the root. Black bodies swinging in the southern breeze. Strange fruit hanging from the poplar trees.
Welcome, welcome to another week here within the groove. And let's just take a deep breath in and release. We come from a rich tradition of sharing messages, important news through music and through sound. In Africa, we use the talking drum to relay messages across great distances. As Africans were brought here on ships, we sang. We sang to express all of our emotions. We sang to stay connected spiritually. We sang to find our family members and fellow villagers. In the States, as we transitioned languages, we still held on to singing. We used field hollers, which grew into our early spiritual African and American spirituals. We use songs to relay important messages when it came to finding our freedom. One song that still lives in our vernacular is Wade in the Water. And we know that song to be used to let folks know, be in the water and let the water wash away your scent so the dogs wouldn't find you. Tonight, we're going to talk about songs that were born from that tradition that live with us today and how we use music to relay messages of protest, hope, peace, and liberation. So kick back and get ready for this episode of In the Groove. Hey, welcome. The GrooveMasters we have in the house tonight. What's going on?
Hey, how you doing?
Yo, right, yeah, well, I'm doing well. And let me just shout out before we get into it, I want to thank everyone for watching, tuning in again, watching the episode last week. We've got a tremendous response. So, we're grateful and we're going to keep the groove coming to you every Friday. Yes. And as you know, there's normally 4 of us in the house. So we have someone you didn't get to meet last week. So I'm going to let Rainier kick it in and introduce herself for a minute before we get into the show.
Hey, everyone. I am Rainier. Just strictly Rainier. And I am so glad to be here this week. I got to catch last week, so I'm so honored. I live here in Queens, New York, but I'm originally from Philadelphia, PA. And I have always been a lover of music. I grew up with 45s and pictures of Shalimar and Michael Jackson and Shaka Khan on the walls and just singing, whether it was gospel or whatever else. So I am so glad that I get to be with you this week.
And we are so glad to have you here this week with us. And we have another guest coming out this week, as folks know. And before we bring the guests out, I just want to kind of couch us for this episode. With everything happening this year, especially when we look at COVID, when we look at the senseless, brutal murders of Black people, the senseless, brutal murders of trans people, when we look at what's happening in our government, when we look at what is starting to happen and has been happening really with voter suppression, it was so clear to me that we needed to have a conversation about these things, but contextualized with music, because that is what we do. We're in the groove. We do music, and the reality is that music is always with us. You know, music is with us with every emotion we go through. And sometimes it may feel heavy. And I will say right now, this episode may feel a little heavy, but we're going to walk through this, and we're going to glide through this, and we're going to climb through this. And we are going to understand and be grateful, so grateful that we have music with us at all times, especially in these moments. And just so folks know, I'm going to kind of take the early road and do like the 60s and the olden days, I guess. And then we're going to go to Trevor, who's going to guide us through, you know, right on, power to the people in the 70s. And then Renee's going to kick it up live. Yo, what's up? 80s and beyond. And we got our gear on. I got my, you know, we were saying it loud. I got my shout it louder. My brother Trevor, he's up in Dashika-fied. What's going on?
Power to the people.
Yeah, and Renee, she giving you a neckwear and lights and all that. So we're going to be all this kind of blackness. And we're not going to be alone tonight. The guests we have this evening, because we have so much to cover, I can't get into the introduction I want to get into with this woman, but I am going to say this. Well, let's just do some of the recent stats. 2017, named the National Endowment of the Arts Jazz Master. Also in 2017, an ASCAP champion for her humanitarianism. 2018, Doris Duke Performing Artist Award. 2019, inductee into the Memphis Music Hall of Fame. 3-time Grammy winner, Tony winner for one of my shows, The Wiz. So I got to shout that out. And just let me say this, aside from, in addition to all of that, I've had the blessing not just to experience her as a performer, I get to experience her as a person. And that's what's so beautiful and the blessing that we get to share in tonight, because trust me, just get ready. Welcome in Miss Dee Dee Bridgewater.
Hi. Thank you. That was sweet. Thank you. Wow.
Well, you know,
So
and never the abridged version. The abridged version. We are so happy to have you here.
Thank you. How's everybody doing?
Oh, we are blessed.
Yeah.
We are so blessed and honored. So honored.
Yes, and look, we've had some conversations this week. And, you know, we needed to ground ourselves to be ready to do this show. And it is beautiful to have you here, because when it comes to kind of leading with legacy, you exemplify that. And so first we're going to have a little toast so we can get ready for this show.
Yes.
How's New Orleans though? How you doing in the 504?
I'm doing okay. You know, I feel very fortunate to be in New Orleans. Our mayor, LaToya Cantrell, is doing a great job for the city, and then we have a Democratic governor, Governor John Bell Edwards. So, you know, we've been okay. You know, the Republicans are trying to take away the governor's powers now as we get near the elections, but so far so good.
Okay.
So far, so
all
good.
right. Well, we're going to stay in that flow, right? Because I heard you had like 3-4 days COVID free, no new cases and stuff. So, you know, shout out to that. And as I raise a glass
Coffee
tonight, okay, yeah, whatever we need. Again, knowing we are in heavy times, and knowing that we have music to embrace us and caress us and to hold us and to be a part of our healing. Knowing that we have music to allow us to express all of ourselves in fullness, knowing that before us, there was so much genius in the universe that created all of these sounds and all of this music, and it continues to exist and live through us as we talk about it, as we share, as we co-create, and as we give. So tonight, that is what we're going to be in. We're going to be in the giving and the sharing and the co-creation of music. So I'm gonna lift my glass to that. Y'all can lift your glass to whatever you want. And we want to kick it in. So So, right. And no, now I'm gonna tell y'all right now, this is just some bold ginger ale. This is some new stuff I'm trying. But trust me, after the show, we're gonna get there. So, after some of these topics, we may need to change that drink. But we are going to start though. We're going to start like late 50s, early 60s. And before we get into it, I want to acknowledge Thomas Dorsey. I want to acknowledge Thomas Dorsey, yes, as a blues performer, musician, and songwriter. I want to acknowledge him as a man who at some point in life shifted and said, you know what? I want to serve God in this way and use my musical gifts. I want to honor him and his persistence because he was not really accepted by the church at first. But he did his thing and did his thing and did his thing. And, for folks who don't know, I'm just going to say, precious Lord, take my hand. We are talking about Father of Gospel. And why I wanted to couch this conversation and start there is because often when we talk about message music, etc., we talk about it growing out of the church. And tonight we're going to understand an American gospel grew out of blues. American gospel grew out of some other things. So we're not going to do this separation. We're going to talk about the unification of the musical experience. So that's I just want to put that out there for folks. Y'all can Google later and do all that. But we honor you, Mr. Dorsey, in being a part of our liberation and where we are today. And so now, though, in the 50s and 60s, I want to go to Miss Dee Dee Bridgewater. And if you could share some about what it was like during that time, especially around race, and especially with you being in Memphis, which is, well, look, we was in America. Let me say we was in America. But
well, I grew up. I was born in Memphis, but my family was part of the Great Migration. So we moved back to Flint, Michigan, where my mother was born when I was 3. So that was in 1953. And how was it like? It was an interesting period for me as a child because my parents really shielded my sister and I. And so we didn't have a notion. And of course, we were in a Black community. And I grew up feeling like everybody had their own community because in Flint, Michigan, if you wanted to have Mexican food, you went to the Mexican community. We had Hungarian, we had German. I mean, so my mother was always taking my sister and I to all these different neighborhoods. And it just seemed like the normal thing, because everybody was in their different hood, but everybody was very receptive. So I grew up with that idea of okay, we're all separate, but I never felt when I was a little girl that there was any sort of inequality because of my Blackness. And so I have to attribute that to my mother mostly, my father a little bit, but my mama was the one. However, my mother, I was a fast little girl. And so my mother decided I had to go to Catholic school when I was 7. And so she put my sister and I into a Catholic school in Flint called St. Matthew's. And that was where I had my first experience with racism. Because all of a sudden I was going to a Catholic school and it was predominantly white. We were 4 Black kids in the entire school. Which went from, first grade to 12th grade. And I remember being called the N word when I was 8 or 9 and beating this little white boy up. I mean, I beat him. And so that, and then I remember as I got a little bit older before my mama had to take me out of the school, but there would be sleepovers and I would never be invited. And so it started kind of to register in my mind, even though, there wasn't ever any discussion about racism in my house, ever. I don't ever remember um, our parents sitting us down and just saying, this is it. I learned the hard way. I mean, I just learned, you know, and then I would take it home and tell my parents about it. But you know, in my early teens was also when Black Where the Natural happened, and then Black is Beautiful happened, and then we went from being Negro to being Black. And you know, there were just, I would notice during this period, I would say from like 1962, when I started to become aware at 12, until the time there were fighter. I That was my first political awareness period, you know, at that time. So the Black Panther Party started, and of course, I hopped right into that. And you know, I was at Michigan State University, and I served. You know, the Black Panther Party was amazing in the beginning, and the Black Panther newspaper was so educational and so informative. So everything that I learned in my early adult years, I learned from the Black Panther newspaper about all of our legal rights, because they would do these columns about, you know, what you need to do in different situations, and how to deal with the police, and you know. So I had that, and I mean, I love the Panther Party. I loved it. So they had a breakfast program. They had all of these community outreach programs. And that when I was at Michigan State University, I served on that breakfast program. And I'll never forget, I was also pledging AKA at the time, because, you know, this was a thing when you would go to college and university, you'd pledge the sororities. And if you were Black, we had our Black sororities and our Black fraternities and all of that. But I remember I pledged because my mother had been an AKA, but I really wanted to be a Delta. And but I pledged AKA, and the AKAs were really upset with me because of my political activism. They didn't want me up in that at that time. It was a very interesting period. So
Okay. Well,
yeah,
hold on right there. No, thank you. And that's good actually
yeah,
that you got there, because there is this piece of it. And thank you. You know, of course, that's one of the reasons you're here, because you're going to share, you're going to talk. But this kind of what was happening was there was this one side of Blackness that was Blackness. And we're going to be Black. We're going to be in it. Everybody going to take our Blackness and they're going to have to deal with it. And then there's this other, don't you understand that we are arriving and that there's a different way to do this? And I mean, and we see the schisms kind of come up constantly. And I think there's a kind of musical space that happens in it as well. So I want to go to a song that it's a beautiful song. I had to listen to it a lot this week to not be emotional in this moment. It's a song my grandmother used to sit by her window and sing every day. And That's the Change Is Gonna Come by Sam Cooke. And it carried that this is going on. And I know in my heart it's going to be different. And it carries it from a certain space. And for, you know, Dee Dee, we like to just share. We start talking about music, we go a little crazy. So I'm gonna give a little bit about the song here. In kind of how he came to write it, there were different instances that occurred in his life, but one was him checking in a hotel. He had called ahead of time and he had his family with him. He was going to check in a hotel in Louisiana, got there, couldn't check in. There was some hem and haw. They got to Sprague Street, which is where the Black hotels were, ready to check in. It's okay, we're just going to stay at the, I think it's the Castle Hotel at the time. And they were arrested. And it was just kind of like his final with all of this. And he felt like, I need to write a song to address some of the issues around race. Wrote the song, performed it once on Johnny Carson. It's like 1964, I think it was the early part of the year. But the song wasn't released at the time. He felt after the performance, one, that the song was a little complicated to do in terms of the arrangement, but also emotionally, he felt like he didn't want to perform the song again. So when I've been on a search to find a performance of the song live and you can't find it, supposedly those tapes were destroyed from the Johnny Carson show. And then the song eventually was released after his death. Compared to some of his other songs, it didn't do as well on the charts per se, but it has lasted. It lives, like that song lives to this day, to the Democratic National Convention. Jennifer Hudson performing it and shutting it down. And it can be complex because there's this piece of it that, again, it's a beautiful song and the message is so clear and pure. At the same time, we've been singing the change is gonna come and singing the change is gonna come and singing the change is gonna come. And what's up with the change? Did it come? Did we miss it? You know, what happened? So we want to talk about it a little bit, but I want to show a clip. Sue, if you can show a piece of it. And this is Al Green performing it with Booker T and the MGs back. Yeah, right. There you go. So Sue, if you could hit that.
Change gonna come. Oh, yes, it will. I say, yeah. You all back here to me here, say, yeah.
Yeah.
I say, oh, yeah.
Oh,
I again say, oh, yeah.
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 Yes.
Yes. We ain't never far from
So,
church.
you know, if you
I
don't
know.
right, if you don't get ugly when you're doing
You
that
ain't-
song,
yeah.
you ain't doing it right.
And
You're not feeling it.
You just don't
Thank
leave
you.
off.
You ain't doing it right.
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 So,
The
anyone
Reverend,
want
the
to share a little
Reverend.
bit about the song? Yeah, go ahead. Dee Dee, go ahead. I see you jumping and going. I thought you was getting ready to you said the rest.
I was just gonna say the Reverend Al Green, Reverend Al Green. That's all I was gonna say. But the song, I love Al Green. But I mean that song has really surpassed time, and it is such a deep statement, and I think it just really resonates with us as a people because of what it says. I mean, the fact that we're born poor, but we have always fought for and always had the hope and the belief that we can achieve if we just keep persevering and just keep pushing through. There were times that I thought I couldn't last too long, but now I'm able to carry on. We're talking about the power of the Lord. We're talking about the power of prayer. We're talking about the Black experience with this song.
Mhm.
That's my takeaway. And I don't know about any of you, but I'm having not a problem, but since we were shut down with this pandemic and since the death of George Floyd, I don't want to say I've become a bigot, but I'm just very concerned about my Black people. And I don't want to see anything unless it is lifting up my people. I don't want to watch TV unless it's about Black people. I need to see me. I need to see a reflection of myself when I turn on the television set. So I have become I've started isolating, and if I don't see it, I just turn it off. I just shut it down. So, and especially now with what we have going on leading up to the election, I think we need to be as buoyed as possible. So thank you, Kwame, because I'm gonna start listening to that song too. Because I need that. I need
Okay,
that.
all right.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, no problem.
Mm-hmm.
Anybody else want to add to about change is gonna come? Okay, they ready to get into what you just said, the blackness. So we have that side, like that was my grandmother's song. Now we have this
Mm-hmm.
side that became kind of my mother and parents area. You know, my mother was heavily involved with SNCC. My father got involved with the Panthers. Y'all know I'm a militant revolution baby. So we have these other artists who are really challenging the system. Not just the change is going to come, but we need the change to happen now. And I'm coming there and change it myself if you can't get it together. And the high priestess to me is the trailblazer for this. And of course, I'm talking about Nina Simone.
Of course.
So we're gonna roll this, and then we're gonna get into this conversation around Nina Simone. So Sue.
To be young, gifted and black. Oh, how I long to know the truth. There are times, and I am haunted by my youth. But my joy of today is that we can all to say to be
young, gifted and black.
Each where it's at. Each where it's at. Each where it's at. Then I try to find a job, get a little cash. All you're gonna hand me is your 2 cent backlash.
Mm-hmm.
Words big and bright and round, black and round. Full of other folks like me who are black, beige, and brown. Backlash and Kissinger, I'm gonna leave you, and you already got them.
Oh!
My skin is yellow, and my hair is long. Between two worlds, I do belong. My father was rich and white. He forced my mother late one night. So here I am. What do they call me? My name is Saffronia. My name is Saffronia. You don't have to live next to me. Just give me my equality. Everybody knows about Alabama. Everybody knows about Mississippi. Everybody knows about Mississippi. Oh, that's it.
There we go.
Nina Simone. Nina
There we go.
Simone. I'll tell you what freedom is to me, no fear.
No
So
fear.
Dee Dee, you let us in with this whole piece, even you personally talking about embracing and needing to see Blackness. And Nina Simone to me in many different ways. And I'm going to step out because I know they got side. So this is kind of where I get to turn things over as we transition eras to Trevor. But I just want to say, growing up dark skinned, Nina Simone was this powerful representation in all of the Africanness and the naturalness. And it was later in life when I kind of learned the Nina Simone prior to that, like the Nina Simone with the perm wig and the gowns and stuff. That wasn't my first recollection of her, but she has definitely, at least for me, been this kind of epitome of Blackness in music and honoring Blackness to its fullness. So I'm gonna step out. I know Dee Dee, you personally knew Nina. I know Rainier, you've had conversations, and Trevor, you also talked about Mississippi Goddamn. So I'm gonna let y'all take it.
Rainier, did you want to go first? Because I have a few things to say about Nina.
Well, I've shared behind the scenes. I've shared that when I was growing up in Philadelphia, I wasn't exposed to my blackness in context. Like I came up down Ninth and Diamond. I knew that because I went to school, I was bussed out for school. I went to private school. I knew that where I was going to school at was different than where I lived, but I didn't know why, and I didn't understand why. And I really, and I think I shared before, I was adopted, and so I was adopted by my great aunt who was 40 when they took me, and so it wasn't until many, many years later when I was talking to her about being upset to find out about all my Black heroes. She shared with me about in the 50s having um, slapped a white lady for calling her the N-word and losing her job, and how that made her feel, not being able to, just feeling less than a person in that moment, and that she never wanted me to have to be exposed to that. So I probably was in my 30s before I even knew the impact of racism. But a couple years ago, I didn't know the story of Nina Simone, but there was a Netflix documentary, and I was in the space of watching all these Black documentaries, and I saw this documentary, and I'm getting emotional thinking about it. By the time I got to the end of the documentary, I was so angry and saddened that nobody took the time to really understand why her heart was so broken and why she was so angry and why she was so many things. So when I sit here and I watch those clips, I felt it, especially with everything that is happening right now. I just turned 45, so that's my age demographic. And with what is happening right now, I get it. Like sometimes I want to say United States, goddamn. Like I get it. And so that's what the watching and listening to her and feeling her ancestral energy. It just is overwhelming.
How am I supposed to follow that?
Just with your experiences and your feelings.
With
But I
truth,
hear you,
with
Renee.
truth, yeah, with truth,
Yeah.
dude.
Right.
Yeah.
So Nina Simone, to me, she represents the women in my family. All of the women in my family are dark skinned. And when I was young, I have an aunt named Ethel, and she loved music. She loved all kinds of music. She loves all kinds of music. And my mom loved books. And so my mom introduced me to Toni Morrison and James Baldwin. The same time my aunt introduced me to Nina Simone. So I can't separate those three. You know, Nina Simone, James Baldwin, and Toni Morrison, they're all poets to me. So every time I hear Nina Simone, I think about James Baldwin and Toni Morrison. And every time I see one, they're all together for me, you know? And so they're all powerful. They're all visions of strong Black people for me. So they lift me up. Every time I hear Nina Simone, she lifts me up. Every time I read James Baldwin, I hear a part of a James Baldwin book or Toni Morrison, they all lift me up. The first book that my mom ever gave me was The Bluest Eye. And I still have that book, and I always will cherish that book. And so, and one of the first albums that I had, two of the first albums, one was a Nina Simone album, and the other one was Roberta Flack, Chapter 2. And so, and I still have that Roberta Flack album. And so Nina Simone will always have a place in my heart. Yep.
Yeah. I hear you. I hear you, Trevor. Nina was a very complex woman. And I did have the fortune to meet her when I was living in France, in Paris. And I had several different kinds of experiences with her, um, that I will not go into because they don't, you know. But Nina was bipolar. And so what I didn't realize, because now I have a son who is bipolar, but I didn't know about bipolarity then, which was called, you know, manic depressive disorder. Sometimes I would meet her and she would be in the low phase of this disease, and sometimes I would meet her and she would just be kind of manic. And a couple of times when I feel like she was in her manic phase, she bashed me hard. And we had an incident in Israel, and we were performing in Jerusalem, and I had to open for her. And I was so honored. And that was the first time, you know, I hadn't met her, but I knew her percussionist, Leopoldo Fleming. And so I was thrilled that I was opening for Nina Simone. I had written my final in my freshman year at Michigan State University. I'd written that on For Women. You know what I mean? My blackness, I was informed by Nina Simone. I started wearing my hair natural when I saw Nina Simone on the Ed Sullivan Show with her hair coiffed like an African princess and dressed in African fabric. I was like, this is my woman, you know. So she was a hero. She was one of my heroes. So she bashed me in an interview and that came out in the paper the second day of concerts that we had. And I was blown away. I was like, here we are, two black women in Jerusalem, and she's slaughtering me and just saying horrible things about me, you know, none of which was true. And so, I mean, I was so distraught. And we were staying in the same hotel. So I wrote her a letter. First, I went down to her suite and I knocked on the door. And she just kept saying, go away, go away. And so then I went upstairs and I wrote her a letter about how disappointed I was and how much I loved her and how here we were, two black women in this, you know, in this country, and one is bashing the other. And I was like, you know, what does that say about us as black women? And she couldn't deal with it. And and then we would do a lot of television shows together in Italy. We would be booked on the same shows. And she tried to speak to me about 3 years after that. And I was so hurt that I refused to speak to her. And it was maybe a year after that that she passed. And I always regretted that we didn't mend, you know, that fence. But you know, Nina was Nina is genius for me. Nina is genius personified. Nina always carried that bitterness because she was not accepted as a classical pianist, which is what she wanted to be. And Nina was angry, because you know she knew that her blackness was not this beautiful blackness, and then she married this man that then, you know, abused her and her business. And I mean, she just was a very complicated woman. So I can understand her in a way that, of course, you know, when you're younger and you haven't had all the experiences, you can't understand someone. But the woman is powerful. The woman has been, she's been at the forefront of our movement, you know, our black movement from the 60s. And she was able to put into words, or if it wasn't even her song, she had an uncanny way of giving that emotion to a lyric that could just destroy you. For me, I mean, she had, and her power was a more outward power. Billie Holiday was more of a kind of soft inward power. You had to really listen to Billie to get it. But Nina, it was clear. It was very clear. And she was very proud of being black. And you know, and she was she was amazing. She was amazing. And I just feel very fortunate that even though, you know, there was a kind of falling out, and when she was ready to have me forgive her, I wouldn't see her, you know. So her music was amazing. What were you going to say, Kwame?
No, I was going to say, and thank you for sharing that. And the beauty of this moment, as I spoke earlier, is about healing and forgiveness. What we do
Hmm.
know is Nina Simone is with the ancestors, understanding you and understanding your response, and all is well. And we get to have this conversation and let out and then take in all the newness. So
Yeah.
thank you, Miss Nina Simone.
Mm,
And
yes.
we're going to let that take us into the 70s. Y'all know every topic we pick, we like, how we going to do this in an hour? We just getting out the 60s into the 70s, but it's all right. But we have some great comments. Yes, I remember comments this time finally. So I'm looking, just love for the show, love for Nina Simone, love for the ancestors. And this piece about lighter, darker that comes up that somebody mentioned. Yes, and it's a reality we hold on to today. And we'll deal with that on another show. We got some things planned, but I'm going to let Trevor take us into the 70s. And Sue, why don't you give us this clip and then Trevor will pick it up from there.
Mm. Ah. Mm, 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 mm,
Spend it
Spend it
on
on
the
the
have-nots.
have-nots.
Money, we make it. Always see you take it. Oh, make me wanna holler the way they do my life. Yeah. Make me wanna holler the way they do my life. This ain't living, this ain't living. No, no, baby, this ain't living. No, 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 no.
Okay.
So,
Yes.
And that'll take us into that time. Yeah.
so that was our inner city blues clip. So that was from the
Right,
70s.
right.
That song was Marvin Gaye, Makes Me Wanna Holler. So that was from the album What's Going On. So that album was Marvin Gaye's album that Motown, Berry Gordy, didn't want him to do. So Marvin Gaye at that time was like on top. He was R&B soul. And so he wanted to do something a little bit different to like get him into the time that everybody was protesting, everybody, black power, freedom and everything. So he wanted to do that. Berry Gordy didn't want him to do it. So he decided to do it anyway. And you know what? It turned out to be the greatest album of all time. It's actually the #1 album on Billboard charts, greatest album of all time. So I think he might have had a good idea with that one. So that actually leads us into other albums. We have a lot of protest songs are that speak to us, not only Black people, but people of all races. We like to say, okay, well, will the song get us up and get us going, make us think about what's going on today? And, a lot of these songs from the 70s, even from the 60s, make us think about what we're going through today. We're going through a lot with race. We're going through a lot with gender identity. We're going through a lot with, could I say, our president, with this election that's coming up. And, we can listen to these songs right now and we can say, yeah, we identify with these songs today,
Mm,
And so, like Odu and Rainier and I, we've talked about these songs. There are a lot of songs now that we can play them and, we identify with them today. And we say, oh man, they were going through this 50, 60 years ago. And, it's
mm,
sad that we actually listen to these songs and we identify with these exact same words today.
mm.
We've come a long way, but we still have a long way to go. We still have a long way to go. And that's the part that I think is sad. We really have a long way to go, you
Yeah.
know? I mean, I mean, we have work to do. We have a lot of work to do. And, and what I'm proud of is that we have a lot of people out there doing it. A lot of these young people, they don't mind doing it, and I'm really proud of these young people these days. They're out there doing it, in the trenches doing it. And I'm proud of that. Anybody else?
Well,
Renee,
hold on a second.
Okay, right. I was supposed to say there we go.
Okay, yeah, there she is.
Yeah, sorry. Yeah, that album, and Marvin Gaye was just so prolific. I think that's why that album is like the #1 album, because he was able to hone in and to say things that were on our minds at that time.
Right.
I feel very grateful that I kind of came up in that time, because I don't know, it seems like there was we were all fighting in our individual ways for the respect and the recognition, but there was just a movement, such a strong movement, because this makes me think of Percy Mayfield. And I mean Percy Mayfield, of Curtis Mayfield.
I know.
And I'm sorry, but Percy Mayfield, River's Invitation. That's a good one too. But Curtis Mayfield, and all the beautiful songs that he wrote that was dealing with what was going on. There was a way that we expressed that the condition, the social condition, was expressed musically, that I feel had a wider accessibility to it, because of the melodies, and I mean, the way that, I mean, I've been seeing some wonderful pieces coming out, since we've been going through this pandemic, but there was just something about that album, and the music of that time. I mean, that just, I don't know, seems to carry stronger. Oh, I don't know. What do you feel?
Well, I was going to say, what's interesting that you said that, because with that album, it just seems interesting to say, or funny now, that's like the first album where a male vocalist had 3 top 10 Billboard songs on one album. So there is something about the way it resonates in content and musically. It was digestible. And I think it's also, I always look at music in the context of the world. There were so many different things people were wondering what's going on. Kind of a lot of songs like War by Edwin Starr is about war. We have songs about poverty.
Yes.
This was kind of what in the world is going on. So when we sit today, that is the time we're in. Like, like, it's not just the pandemic. It's not just Black Lives Matter. It's not just Trans Lives Matter. It's everything possible is happening. So there is that head scratching. And to what Trevor said is true. The beauty is, which is reminiscent of that time, at least from what I know being a wee one then, was that people, especially younger people, could not be concerned about something. It's just almost strange to think someone can wake up in this world today, and especially in the United States, and not be concerned about something outside of themselves. So some social issue, some human rights issue, some civil issue. And so when we land there, this is the song, and that's the album that allows everyone to galvanize, or that galvanizes, I should say, everyone, and we become a part of the story. So I do think that speaks to the longevity of that. And as well as other artists, Curtis Mayfield's a whole show. I can't start talking about Curtis Mayfield. It's going to get like intense in here. So we're going to leave that alone.
Right.
I'm gonna go to Rainier if you wanted to add, because one thing when we talked about this too, we realized the 70s needs its own show. So when y'all start typing about what we didn't say, don't worry about it. We have a whole 70s thing. It's a whole season.
All right.
70s. So don't worry. But Rainier, if you want to add that, we're gonna bring it up into the 80s. Oh, and wait, we have
well, real briefly, because so I was born in.
Oh no, go ahead. Go ahead. I'm sorry. I can't multitask. We do. Oh, Okay, right. And I spoke a little about that, and we'll get, yes, that reality
I saw it.
around colorism, complexion. Yes, and that's a shout out, Troy. We see you out there. And that is a reality. That's still something we're having conversations about today. I mean, and you know, we will have conversations about it. And I know that in the groove, unfortunately, we can't work it all out right now, but we're going to get to that at some point. So Rainier, and then we're going to go into the next piece.
Well, I just want to add, because it was you know, being born, like I was born in 75. So a lot of the music I did not hear until later. And it's interesting because even as Trevor was talking, I actually thought about Curtis Mayfield, Miss Dee Dee. I'm telling you that my thought immediately, for some reason, went to Invisible, which we're not going, like you said, we're not going to get into all of that. But I heard a lot of this music in movies, like Claudine and movies,
Oh my
Shaft,
Lord.
and all that
Claudine.
stuff later. And so for me, when I think of sometimes I feel I miss something. I feel like anyone that was born after the 70s missed something very empowering. And I'm not, you know, moving in regret. I'm just saying it seemed to me like that was such a powerful explosion of embracing of the Blackness. It was when it became imperative for power to come forward from who you were just being. Like I because it didn't necessarily translate to the next generations the same way, because then that's when we start being met with the crack epidemic and all of that other stuff. Some things started to fall out as the generation started going forward. That's just my lived experience.
It seems like that
Well,
if I can cut in, it just seems like you have been born, Rainier, in a time when there was a recognition by the powers that be that our people were really beginning to have a sense of power and individuality, and we were feeling ourselves, okay, and we were making all these statements. So that was also the beginning of the dumbing down of our whole entire United States society. But truly, that was the beginning. And then they moved us away from family, because in the 60s and 70s, I mean, it was all about family. It was all about lifting each other up. And now we're all about me, I. And so they broke it. You know, we had SNCC, we had the Panthers, we had all of these Black movements going on. We still have the NAACP, but we had all of these movements going on, and they deliberately set about, you know, and Dr. King, and you know, so we know. So they deliberately set about this whole disenfranchisement and this whole separation, this, you know, and they have succeeded in a lot of ways. So the Black Lives Matter movement, for me, as someone from that period, this is, you know, the younger children picking up where we left off. You know what I'm saying? But I feel like it's been very deliberate, you know, and yeah, I mean, I feel like it has been.
No, I hear you. And, you know, like I said, now that's a whole, you know, we can get in that conversation. But there's a point you brought up that I think is a good segue to Rainier. Is this transition to me? Because then we are in the 80s, where we get Dallas and Dynasty and we get all those things. And when we talk about message music at that point, we see this kind of We Are the World, Band-Aid, Sun Cities, like celebrities coming together to raise money and all these things that are out there. And it did bring, you know, that's what Friends Are For with HIV and AIDS. It brought attention to issues, but did not necessarily resolve them, nor did it manage to resolve any of the issues that were already in existence. So we have this other art form that comes up and grows out of that angst. And again, if we thought the 70s were kind of aggressive, then we get to hip hop and we get like kicking it in the real. So Sue, you want to give us that? And let me tell you, the comments are blowing up. I see y'all love to Marvin Gaye, and yes, the Huxtables. Okay, I know. So, but let's get to hip hop and Rainier. All right. So, Sue, if you can give us that.
But while my loved ones was fighting a continuous war back in the city, I was entering a new one. A war that was based on apartheid and discrimination. So don't push me, cause
I'm close.
I'm trying not to lose my head. It's like a jungle sometimes. It makes me wonder how I keep from going under. It's like a jungle sometimes. It makes me wonder how I keep from going under. My ink is black. The page is white. Together we learn how to read and write. People are black, got people that's white. Let's stop racism and let's unite.
Break into a lyrical freestyle. Grab the mic, look at the crowd and see my position. A woman standing up on her own two. Sloppy slacking is something I won't do. Some think that we can't flow. Stereotypes, they got to go. I'ma mess around and flip the scene into reverse. With what? With a little touch of ladies first.
Was a hero to most, but he never meant to me. If you straight out racist, the sucker was simple and plain. Motherfucking ninja way. Cause I'm black and I'm brown. I'm ready to fight cause I'm amped. Most of my heroes don't appear no stamp.
It's time to stand together in a unity. Cause if not, then yo, we're going to be self-destroyed, unemployed. The rap race will be lost without a trace or a clue. But what to do is stop the violence and kick the science down the road that we call eternity, where knowledge is formed and you learn to be self-sufficient, independent. To teach the each is what rap intended, but society wants to invade. So do not walk this path that they laid. It's self-destruction. Yeah, it was self-destruction. Self-destruction. D-Nice, break it down like this.
I'm fucked up, homie, you fucked up, but if God got us, then we gon' be alright. Right?
Nigga, we gon' be alright. Nigga, we gon' be alright. We gon' be alright. Nigga, give me, do you feel me? We gon' be alright. Nigga, we gon' be alright. Be alright. Nigga, we gon' be alright. Do you hear me? Do you feel me? We gon' be alright.
Oh, well.
Well, you know what I'm gonna say about the all right. Right. I ain't gonna go there. I'm gonna let Rainier pick this up with the hip hop.
So we're looking at this moment where, you know, something different needs to happen, and we could be all day on hip hop, from the originators to the house parties that kicked it off to just people sitting around in ciphers and just I used to be in a few, just sitting around in ciphers. You just spitting what's on your head. You just spitting what's in your heart. Poetry, you know, coming from the revolution, you know, will not be televised. And here we are. The revolution is being televised and moving.
Thank God.
In a way that no one could expect. So, you know, when I look across the clips, there's songs that are still not even in there. Like you have F the Police, you have all these other hip hop songs that have moved things. But one of the things about this, so like, for instance, let's look at, because someone even mentioned in the room, the self-destruction. Like self-destruction was part of the Stop the Violence movement. It was part of Stop the Violence movement. It was after this fan had been killed in the 1988 concert. The KRS-One gathered everyone and was like, here we're talking about, you know, and I'm use this phrase loosely, please don't hurt me, the black on black crime. We're talking about moving our neighborhoods in a way and coming together to stand up. And that song has been duplicated. There was self-construction, there was self-destruction 2010, there were, you know, self-destruction, Stop the Violence, Baltimore. That song has become like its own anthem for this conversation of what can we do to grow. But even before, but while we're trying to do the stuff to make us grow, we have this other dynamic happening around police brutality. And there's a number of songs out there, not just the ones that we have just showcased, that talk about this, what is still happening. Like, why isn't it that a person of color cannot walk down the street without being stopped for jaywalking? That just happened today. Someone was stopped for jaywalking. You know, why is it that if I just simply look like I don't belong somewhere, or someone simply points out that I look like I'm an issue, there's a 9 out of 10 chance that I might not make it home?
Yep.
So that's still happening today, but that was happening then. And, you know, there were so many issues. It seems like there were so many issues coming to the forefront. You had Ladies First. Queen Latifah was very clear to showcase, to have this dialogue. And you know, we've talked about a couple things around the undercurrent of that song, but for her, there was this misogynistic flowing of lyrics, and female rappers weren't getting the same respect. Women weren't getting the same respect. And that song was awakening people to this conversation. Like, we are queens, we are kings, we are royalty, we are this. We should be treating each other with that respect, the same respect that we are demanding of the world. We should be giving that to each other. And I know that we're tight on time, so I just want to go to the other piece of hip hop's influence in conversation around freedom. That was what many of my generation that's how we got introduced to it. That music became, that was our manifesto, so to speak. That people were speaking for us, whether it was White Lines or The Message or what, like, for a change. This was something that came from us, from right in that moment. And it was the only way that many people knew how to get that. Once they got their words out, now we're putting it to rhythm. Now we're turning it into a movement. Hip hop became a movement. And it's still that to this day. And so that was me trying to shorten everything I wanted to say. But I just want to open up the floor.
Yeah.
I mean,
Not to go back,
but if somebody wants to go.
I'm sorry. And Rainier, not to go back, but to go back, Richie Havens had a song at Woodstock called Freedom, and he mixed it with another song called Motherless Child, where he talked about trying to be free in America. And he felt it in his soul. And he just made up the words, where he was saying that he felt like a motherless child in America because he was a black man, and the men going over to Vietnam were going over there, being pushed over to Vietnam, being killed. And, you know, and he felt like he was in this country and he was being denied freedoms and rights that every other man as a black man had, you know. So he felt like he was in this country as a motherless child and he had no freedom. And, you know, and he made that song up right on the spot at Woodstock. And so he was telling exactly his truth right then and there. And here, 2020, here it is, the same thing, the same exact thing. And, you know, it's sad. It's sad that we're right in the same spot, you know?
Dee Dee,
Oh, what did you want to do, Miss Dee Dee?
No, I was asking Dee Dee if she wanted to share something before I jump. Okay.
No, you can go on. I mean, it's all been said.
Okay.
Go on.
Okay. Well, what I was going to say is, one, Trevor did compile this incredible list of songs. You know, with me working all the ends, I done mixed up the clips. So y'all didn't get to see that clip, but we're going to post it in the group online and have some discussion, because he talks about freedom, talks about Roberta Flack. I mean, it's a powerful package that people need to see. But in reference to the package we saw on hip hop, and to say directly to Rainier, what's fascinating about the list you sent was the day, I guess that earlier that day, I was looking up stuff and came across the case of Yusef Hawkins. So in the racism, you know, Big Daddy Kane's part is next, and he talks about Yusef Hawkins. And it's kind of like in Bensonhurst, for folks who don't know, Google Yusef Hawkins, Benson Hurst. If you saw Do the Right Thing, you kind of in the framework. But it's just this kind of, wow, that happened all that time ago. You know, we could go to, you know, Ron Settles, that happened all that time ago. Like all these kind of incidents. And then to your point, we come into 2020 and we are just, it's almost daily. I got to a point where I could not even open up anything because I knew I would see the name of a Black person and somehow or another it would be death before the end of the paragraph. And yeah, I mean, what hip hop did that I think is really important to say, and it speaks again to this, the 80s and the me and all that, and I saw, you know, Troy put in the Huxtables, is because of all the strides and everything, we started to identify Blackness. Well, we've always kind of wanted Blackness to be one thing, even though it hasn't. But once we start to see some Black people successful, the narrative becomes, oh, well, everybody can do it. All Black folks can. And you just pull up by your bootstraps and all this kind of thing. And what hip hop did that was so powerful was be so firm in the messaging that there is not one Black experience. And while that's going on for you, this is going on here. And whether it's a part of you or whatever, you need to know it. And we are going to make sure you know it. If you turn away from here, it will be here. And when you look now, I mean, hip hop is everywhere, but then that's another conversation. And as messages grow, is the message still the same in hip hop? And what I will say, because yes, it's not even just about time, it's just about how much there is there, is that, you know, we have this conversation about music and messages and all of that. We know that all music has a message. It's just what the message is. And so tonight we're talking about specific messages, and that there are still artists that are out there doing it. I mean, you look at Childish Gambino and you look at This Is America and what that song did. I mean, that song was like, and you're talking about somebody that's in the Star Wars franchise. like where it's all about money and that, and they have their own issues that we've seen there. But he comes out with this song, and in the video where he addresses, like, you know, the old Black, you know, the Coon Memorabilia and all, like, it's just so intense. Like B. Slade released a song last week, Black Queer Art. Well, I don't know if he says queer, so Black gay man, you know, called Change. I will put it in the group so people can check it out. You have so many people still doing that music, so we understand that. But I think there's something Dee Dee said earlier, and as we kind of wrap up, is this not just the accessibility based on the music itself, but we access music differently. We don't access music as a family. We don't access music the same way as a community. We have our devices. We can, you know, we don't even see music promoted the same way. So it is upon us then, and that's the beauty of this group and a show like this, is that we can keep music alive and put things out there and make sure that people know, you know, what's happening. Now, we have had a journey this episode. We have talked about a lot of things, but there's a place I want to, in terms of music, I want us to stop at. And that's why we look at these songs that talk about freedom, liberation, change, peace, hope, struggle, that also we've had anthems. We've had these songs, and they're different for all of us, that inspire us. These songs that lift us, these songs that we put on and that keep us moving, keep us rocking, keep us rolling. So let's go around real quick. Listen to me, real quick. And if everyone can just give us a song that's your go-to when you need that lift. We'll start with Rainier.
Ooh.
Oh,
Ooh.
it keeps changing
Yeah,
for
Rainier,
me.
you knew we was going to add that.
I
Rainier,
know.
you know.
So the last song I landed on, as rough as it may sound, is "Party Up," which was DMX. Like, that's my anthem. You know, y'all gonna make me lose my mind up in here, so I gotta keep, you know, take it outside. Like, it just helps. It like brings me up, and so that's liberating for me as a person who is bipolar, as a person who sometimes knows that what's going on in here, I got to get it out of here. That would be my anthem.
Okay. Trevor.
Imagine by John Lennon. That's it for me. I mean, I guess I'm idealistic. I will, that's it for me.
All
Um,
right.
for me, it's Why Am I Treated So Bad?
Mm.
By Pop Staples. Um,
Mhm.
I, I'm involved with an organization that was started by Tammy McCrary, who is Shaka Khan's sister,
Sister.
and we had to do videos for voting, and because I'm such a child of the '60s, and I'm Black Power, I I did a video about Black Power and about the Panthers, and and about how we as a people need to unify and vote. But I underscored my video with Why Am I Treated So Bad? And that is just
Mm.
a song that uh, I have been using before the pandemic happened in my shows, um, to just really open up a conversation from the stage with people. And I started off by saying that we as a people are the only people that I know that have been renamed. When I was a child, we were colored. When I was a teenager, we were Negro. And then we became Black. And then when I moved to France, somehow or other, we became African American. How is our people, why is our people continuously being redefined?
Mhm.
Pisses me off. So, why am I treated so bad? And why is it because of the color of our skin we create such fear for people?
Mm.
So that's where I'm at right now. And I'm trying not to be mad, but I am.
Miss Bridgewater, I don't think we created. I think they created.
Well, this
They
is
created
true.
on their
But
own.
of course, you are right, Trevor. You are so right. Thank you for that
Yeah.
correction for those who are
Yeah.
Mhm.
listening.
No, yeah,
Yeah,
because we was
yeah.
gonna go there. We was gonna go there, and I'm gonna tell you, I do see soon we're gonna have to start doing the after show because it gets, it is a kind of it doesn't end, and in a good way because when we all came together to do this. One thing that was powerful for me was, and I love that people look at us and say, "Oh my God, you guys know so much about music and all of that," but music is a part of all of us, and
Yes.
it's something we can all converse about. So what we don't say here and you said in the comments, and I ignored it because I can't be doing all this. My brain don't work like that. But I'm gonna get to it, and I'm gonna get to y'all. But put it in the group. But yes, and as Troy lift every voice, which is what we
Yes.
do here every Friday. We lift every voice. Y'all lift y'all voices out there. Again, we've talked about voting. We've talked, and that's a whole other conversation. I get the voting angst, the voting pain. But there's something, I hold on to. Being a child of a mother who was in SNCC, a mother who was beat down, a mother who went to jail, that I vote because I vote knowing that I show up because who I am is so relevant and it will be a part of the conversation. I'm not worried about what they're going to do. I do what I am here to do. So that, and we're going to be talking about voting, obviously. And again, it's not that, the show doesn't go on political and all. This is not even, and we've got to even get out that framework. We don't talk
Hmm.
about politics. We talk about life. This is
That's right.
life, and music is a part of life. And sometimes life may be around, but we do it. So on that, there's a few things I want to say before we wrap up. First of all, Miss Dee Dee Bridgewater, thank you. I
Thank
haven't
you
seen you in
so
so long.
much.
Thank
I
you.
miss seeing you, but I'm coming to New Orleans soon. We're gonna mask
Okay.
up and figure out how to eat the red beans and we're gonna put little holes and we're gonna do that. We're gonna do that
We're
soon.
going to
So
do that.
thank you
You're
for
Thank you
so
coming. And I
so
want
much.
Thank you for the invitation. Thank you to allow me to be a part of this conversation. And I just, before I bow out, I just think that what we have to remember is we have got to hold on to the hope. We can't let go of this hope. And I just really want everyone to understand the importance of our voices being transferred through the vote, and how important the vote is. I vote for you. I vote for my grandchildren. I've had my life. I'm 70, so I'm going to be that old lady, that they're going to just go, "Oh, she's old." You know, but I vote for you and my grandchildren and all of everybody that's coming. So it's really important that we vote. It is so important that we vote. And I love you all.
Love
And we
you.
must all stay strong because it is a struggle and the struggle is real. And we
Love
just have
you.
to keep on fighting. We just have to keep on fighting. We know that it's going to change. The enemy changes its face, as we move forward. So they're going to regroup and they see where we've gotten together, with the Black Lives Matter. So you see how they've detoured it. And this is what they do. This is what I have grown up with. And so now, you all have the baton. And then these younger children, I love this Black Lives Matter movement. You have the baton now. So I'm here to support, but I'm not marching on the front lines. I marched. I did that. But I'm here to support and to speak out and to say the truth when I can. So thank you.
Of course. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank
Okay.
you. I mean,
Thank you.
Thank
So
you,
much.
sharing
Thank you, Trevor. Thank you,
Thank
Adu.
you so much.
everything. And we want
It
to
was
thank
an honor.
everyone watching. Oh, I'm sorry. Look, knowing nothing will go on and on. So what I do want to say, and I'm going to say this, and I'm going to talk about this album real quick, Miss Dee Dee Bridgewater. This past June, I was looking, I was covering Gamble and Huff and Philly Soul for Black Music Month. And I was looking for versions of People Make the World Go Round.
People make the
And
world go
Googled-
round.
Yeah. And I was like, Dee Dee Bridgewater, where's she? I ain't never heard this. I thought they were talking about Dee Dee Sharp Gamble and somebody messed up. But I found it, and then I found a reissue of your album, Afro Blue. I'm going to post it in the group. If you have not, there we go. I knew we got a picture here. Pick this up. I ain't going to tell them what you said to me, Dee Dee, but still, y'all get this album. This album is phenomenal. So definitely check that out. Again, thank everyone. And we need to give a shout to one of our fellow GrooveMasters, Donnell. He received his grandmother transitioned today. And we just want to show him love and know that we know she is with the ancestors.
Yes, she is.
And we thank her for the wonderfulness she brought into the world through her life and through all her lineage. And our brother Donnell, we hold you in love and light here.
Yes.
Right.
And next week, if loving you is wrong, we're gonna talk about cheating songs. So, and we're gonna be on the feed. We're gonna be on the feed for that because we know y'all got stuff to say about cheating songs, men cheating on women, women cheating on men, men look for men, women don't know whatever. We're gonna talk about it. But on that note, we're gonna go out with my anthem. It's Rainier, like Rainier, I'm from the 215, Philly strong. There's a song, I'm about to say ain't no mountain high enough. I'm still in last week with Diana Ross. Ain't no stopping us now. But that's it. And see, now we got a singer here because don't get me to start singing. But I'm actually going to spin it a little bit. Because we've been talking about unification and we look at the world and all the people in it. There's a version, No Nos Parará, that was released in 1976 or 79. And it is in Spanish. And that's what we're going to go out with. We thank y'all for joining us here in the Groove. And again, love all you, Dee Dee, Rainier, Trevor, and Sue behind the scene. Big ups for Sue. I know I was supposed to say something about support and how you can send us some money, but I don't worry about it. Money comes all the time. Oh, there we go. We need to just put that up in the group. You're right. There you go. Hook us up so we keep this coming to you. On that note, we're out. Sue, hit it.
Quiero que no pare, yo sigo hasta el final. No pare, no pare, no pare, no pare. Pa'lante, pa'lante, pa'lante voy. Pa'lante y pa'lante.
seeker.